This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to my update of my theory to why the Avengers did not time travel but actually travel the multiverse in Avengers Endgame. And at that point, this was before both Loki Season 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine released. And I mean, this movie's been out for like a month now, and it's the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. So if you're somehow one of the people who haven't watched it yet, but have also managed to have it not be spoiled by anyone, including Marvel themselves, well, then you probably shouldn't watch this because I will be discussing Deadpool and Wolverine spoilers. But going into this, honestly, this was a pretty interesting theory to make back when I did it, and I think that the evidence is even more prominent now. Let's take a look at what I originally talked about, and that is the fact that whenever we saw time travel in other properties that are at least seemingly related to the MCU, like X-Men Days of Future Past and in Deadpool 2, we saw that changing the past does change the future, and that is just really enforced even better with the fact that we now know that the X-Men timeline fully is set in the MCU, or at least the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, and we can presume that time travel would work the same in all universes since the TVA polices time travel, and clearly they wouldn't be policing it or have difficulty doing that if the laws of time worked different in every universe. But now we have so much more evidence for this. Taking a look at just the biggest example so far, we have Loki Season 2, where we literally see Loki go back in time and talk to a past version of Ouroboros, or more commonly known as OB. And with that, he very easily is able to influence events of the future by talking to OB and having things set up for him to be brought back into the present and help out with the current problem. And that's a pretty big piece of evidence where Hulk says that changing the past doesn't change someone's future. But yeah, we literally see an example of this in Loki, as I just mentioned. So we can really tell that they were wrong about that fact of time travel. And while it would be more speculation when I originally did the first theory about it being multiverse travel, more for the fact that it would have to be a multiverse theory because, or not multiverse theory because that's completely separate in concept, but it would be multiverse travel simply because it wouldn't make sense for it to be anything else. It is Occam's razor, so if they didn't travel through time, they had to travel through the multiverse. And while not officially stated, it's pretty heavily could be implied with this theory if we take a look at Deadpool and Wolverine, since we see that time travel and multiverse travel are very close in terms of science and in concept, because think of the fact that in the credits of Deadpool 2, he goes and changes the timeline that shouldn't even exist anymore, being X-Men Origins Wolverine. And while you could say he's just traveled to a weird point in the timeline, we see that through the use of the time travel device, Deadpool was able to go and travel through the multiverse to make it to Earth 616, or whatever it's called in the comics, which is called 616 since it's being called in the movies. But we could see him travel to the main MCU universe, and through that, he is able to go and do multiverse travel. He makes it to the main MCU just before the events of Infinity War, and well, there's a really clear reason to why before, because he has time travel and he would very clearly be bringing that up, but also the Avengers would be desperate for help with the fact that the blip would have just happened. But yeah, honestly, it is pretty solid in terms of a theory to go and look at it and say that, yeah, it has to be them traveling to the multiverse. We also know that multiple timelines do exist within the sacred timeline since the entire Logan and X-Men universe would have had to exist before Loki went and reshaped the sacred timeline into the World Tree. And that is since we know it has to happen before the events of Infinity War and the events of Endgame is directly what led to the events of Loki. So through that we could tell that the Fox universe existed before, and we also have it confirmed that all of the shenanigans that Deadpool was up to in the post credits to Deadpool 2, including contemplating to kill baby Hitler. If you don't remember that scene, it is from the extended cut, which I highly recommend watching because it just includes just so much more little fun moments. But going back to this theory, we can just take a look at it, and I think it's clear that the Avengers didn't travel through time. They traveled through the multiverse. They thought they traveled through time, but it turns out Back to the Future was right, and that time travel does work the way that it is commonly depicted in fiction. And looking at why he remains would want this to happen, because living the lesson I said it would be for him to have time travel be or multiversal travel be created by the Avengers. And it seems that, at least if we go by what's in Loki, that he creates it on his own in the past, at least in reference to us. But I think that it could be pretty easily explained that either one in his timeline, since it wouldn't be the exact same as the other one, he did get that technology from the Avengers. But that is definitely stretching it. I think another good explanation could just be that Thanos had to be defeated, but he also had to wipe out a good amount of humanity. And I think that ultimately could have been the reason also. The final reason could be that he wanted that confrontation to happen with Loki and Sylvie where he thought things would end differently, and he had to have that play out for it to happen. So either of those three explanations can work. And looking at how Deadpool went and cleaned up the timeline, I think that ultimately he didn't care too much. None of this would have created Kang, and there'd probably be events that he would want to happen. While killing Hitler could mess up the timeline a bunch, Deadpool didn't go through with it. And the other things he did, traveling to another timeline and preventing Green Lantern from being made, and maybe just he remains really didn't want that movie to be made and really didn't like it. On the other hand, him killing the knockoff Deadpool. I mean, who didn't want that to happen? I think that he would have erased that timeline if it wasn't destined to be reset by the events of Days of Future Past. And Days of Future Past, I think that ultimately Logan is supposed to be the official ending, and that was the timeline self-correcting itself to go towards the Logan timeline. So he didn't mess with that there. And finally, looking at just everything, I think it's pretty clear that the Avengers did not time travel. They traveled through the multiverse. They went to very similar timelines where the present was just a few years in the past. They thought they time traveled, and it only doesn't matter too much unless they decide to make this a major factor with Doctor Doom now, since he remains and Kang are out of here with everything that's been going on with Jonathan Majors. But we've known that for a few weeks, so honestly, nearly a month now, specifically with Doctor Doom. The Kang stuff has been speculated for the last, like, 6 months at least. But yeah, honestly, please let me know what you think. And I'll see you all in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.